Donovan Johnson has changed his number to number 2 for the season. And we'll open up with the opening statement from Coach.
Just so I kind of hit on that before so I don't forget. The reason is now that we've kind of set our depth charts on offense, defense, and special teams, we had some conflicts, with DeAndre Tompkins on special teams as well as Donovan on special teams, created some problems with that. So that's where that adjustment has come from, just so you guys are aware for that. Overall, I like where we're at. I think we're healthier than we've ever been at this point. I think we're fresher than we've ever been at this point. That's a combination of modifications that we've made based on feedback from sports science. I think that's also Andy Mutnam and the training staff, I think, has done a fantastic job. We're getting guys back on the field quicker so we can develop them, which has been great. And then obviously I think we're just at that point of camp and the start of the season where our guys are ready. They're ready to play somebody else. Obviously, we still need time to prepare specifically for App State. As you know, we always get a head start on these games. We're not going to treat it like a normal game week. So we do get a head start on them, but I think our guys are they're ready to play somebody else. They're ready to run out in Beaver Stadium. I feel like we got into Beaver Stadium the last 2 years probably the right amount from a practice perspective and from a scrimmage perspective. So that Beaver Stadium is still special, when we go in there, but also hopefully reduce with the youth that we have on our team, hopefully reduce some of that, wide eye going in there. Now going in there empty compared to 107,000, which I'm hopeful we can get to. We're close, we're not there yet, but I'm hopeful we can get to by game day. Being able to sell out game 1, against App State would be huge for everybody involved. So I like where we're at. I think it's a tremendous challenge that we got. I think App State, if you look at what they've been able to do in their short time at Division I, has been really remarkable in a lot of ways. 3 bowl games, won all 3 bowl games. If you look at, I think their record over the last 45 games, I think they're in the top 6 in the country over their last 45 games. So they've done some really good things. I think they're 36-9 over the last 41 games, and that's with Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Wisconsin in terms of number of wins. You look at some of the teams that they've played, not only the bowl games, but the regular season. No disrespect to anybody, but they really probably should have beat Wake Forest. Last year they lost 20-19. Wake Forest blocked a field goal, 39-yard field goal, 5 seconds left to go in the game. They had Tennessee beat, had to go to overtime at Tennessee for Tennessee to beat them 2 years ago. And then obviously everybody is well aware of the Michigan. At that time, I think they were the second 1AA team to ever beat a ranked opponent. So great thing. Scott Satterfield has been a part of all those things. The head coach, I got a lot of respect for him and what he's been able to do in his career, not only as an offensive guy in terms of quarterbacks, receivers, a short time as an offensive coordinator, and then becoming the head coach there. He's an alum, so that's special, obviously, for him as well. Statistically, I think we match up pretty well. Offensively, Frank Ponce is the offensive coordinator. They are primarily a pistol spread team, but they're more of a run team. That's kind of who they've been. And obviously we've been impressed with Jalen Moore, the running back. Was not a highly recruited guy, but has had an unbelievably productive career. Back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Has got over 3,100 career rushing yards, second most returning in FBS. And then is on Bruce Feldman's freak list as well. Has run 4.37 in the 40, 38.5-inch vertical jump, 11.1 broad jump, 390-pound bench, 650-pound squat, 350-pound clean. I mean, this guy obviously is a specimen. Was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year, so that'll be challenging. And then obviously Thomas Hennigan, the wide receiver as a freshman, played extremely well for them last year, so that'll be interesting. And then obviously they've had some guys transfer in, so very, very explosive offense, especially when it comes to the running game. They take probably approach that you guys are similar seeing with us, where they are a check with me at the line of scrimmage team. So I wouldn't necessarily call them a tempo team. They're trying to get into the right play. What everybody's trying to do is everybody's trying to hold the chalk last, or I guess you shouldn't use chalk anymore, the dry eraser marker last, so you can get your offense, your defense, and your best call based on what the offense or defense is showing. Defensively, Brian Brown has been promoted to the defensive coordinator. Has worked with their secondary. Their secondary has done an unbelievable job. Their corners, I think, have led the country in interceptions. Especially their one corner has 11 interceptions over the last 2 years. They're a 3-down defense. You're going to look at them. They're undersized, but they are quick. They are twitchy. They are explosive, and they're very productive, and they play fast. So that'll be a challenge for us, not only from a front perspective, but also what they do. Clifton Duck is the corner I was talking about, number 4. Not a very big guy, but extremely productive, has had 11 interceptions over the last 2 years. And then Anthony Flory really reminds us in a lot of ways of Brandon Bell. Seems to have a lot of savvy to him, got a really good feel for the game. And is very, very productive, was the MVP of the Dollar General Bowl last year. And then they got a nose tackle who's a problem, where you better have a nose tackle who's a problem in a 3-4 defense. Micah Stout, I think is a perfect name for him, Stout. 6'1", 280 pounds, very, very productive. And then on special teams, I think Coach Holt's done an unbelievable job. They jumped from 128th in the country to 25th. In special teams efficiency. So obviously they've improved there, and we're excited about that challenge. So great opening game 1 for us in Beaver Stadium. I know our coaches and players are excited to do it. We still got a few more days that we need to kind of clean up some things and get ready for this game so we can go in and play fast and aggressive come Saturday. But I like where we're at. Was it Tuesday? I like where we're at, considering it's Tuesday, we still have a few more days to get ready for this opponent. So open up the questions.
Start with Rich Scarcella from the Reading Eagle.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Rich.
What did you see from Jan Johnson in camp? What do you expect from him now? And has he been awarded a scholarship yet?
Yeah, Jan has been very steady. He's very smart. He's very consistent. He's very physical, especially within the box. I think you guys have heard us talk about before, probably one of the more intelligent players that we have, asked great questions of the coaches, and has been very productive in the classroom as well, and has earned everybody's respect. His teammates' respect, the coaches' respect, and he's earned that starting position. I do think it's going to be a battle. I think all those linebacker positions are going to be a battle all year long. But I don't think there's any doubt that Jan Johnson gives us the best opportunity to win on Saturday. And his status has not changed at this point.
Bob Flounders, Harrisburg Patriot News.
Hi, James. How you doing?
Good, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. James, I wanted to ask you about your young wideouts, your true freshmen and your redshirt freshmen. Just your thoughts on their offseason, especially what they were able to do or show you in August.
Could you name who you're talking about? We got a bunch of those guys. Could you name who you're talking about? You said just 2 freshmen and redshirt freshmen. Who are you specifically talking about?
Well, I was wondering about Devon Dotson. I was wondering about Justin Shorter, KJ Hamler, Max Hippenhamer, guys like that.
Okay, yeah. Dotson has really had a productive camp. I think you guys saw we put something out the other day. He led us for touchdowns, during camp. He's still undersized. He's got to get bigger and stronger in the weight room, but football comes very natural to him. Things make sense to him. He's able to take things from meetings to the field. He's a guy that we think could factor in for us at some point, and the coaches would be very comfortable and confident with playing him. We'll see how that plays out. Right now we have him slated as a yellow, as a guy that we're going to try to play in 4 games at some point, whether that's early or whether that's the middle of the season or late in the season to solve problems from an injury perspective or whatever it may be. Shorter got dinged up during camp, was really kind of on a roll. Probably see significant action early in the season. but got dinged up and has missed a little bit of time. But I think, we're still very, very excited about him. He's big, he's physical, he reminds you a lot of Juwan Johnson. So excited about, those two guys' future. And then, KJ, when you talk to our defensive coaches, we do a lot of kind of interaction between the offense and the defense, and, having discussions, having the opposite side of the ball rank the positions, so having the DBs rank the receivers rank the DBs, and so on and so forth. Having discussions as a coaching staff, and when you talk to our defensive coaches about guys that scare them when they got the ball in their hand, KJ is one of those guys at the top of the list. So if we can get him involved on offense and get the ball into his hands, and if we can get the ball into his hands, on special teams, we'd like to be able to do that, because he's an explosive player, and he's also been a really good leader. And what I mean by that is maybe not the leader that you think of when I say that, but a guy that brings energy and enthusiasm to practice and to meetings in the locker room, very similar to the way Marcus did for 4 years for us. So, I think all three of those guys not only are going to have really good years for us this year, but also will have great careers. Excited about their futures.
Derek Lagarce, Wilkes-Barre Times leader.
Hi, James. How are you doing?
Good, Derek. How are you?
I'm great. James, how are you feeling about your depth across the board at defensive line coming out of camp? And where does Shane Simmons fit into that on the depth chart?
Yeah, so, excited about, our defensive line and really the growth that we've made there in a short period of time. At defensive end, I think we're as good as we've been. Probably the best defensive end unit that I've had in my time as a head coach. I think Shane obviously, would be a huge factor into that. He's got a little bit of he got dinged up a little bit during camp. We do expect him back. How quickly that is unsure at this moment. We'll know more on Thursday. But we feel really good about defensive end. Obviously getting Shane back will take it to a whole nother level, because he had a great spring and had a great summer and a great camp. At defensive tackle, I think we still got some questions there. I think we feel a lot better than we did, coming into the camp. I think, we feel like we got a lot of depth, but who are the guys that are really going to take on that responsibility and say, we're the five guys that are going to play a lot in the rotation, and there's clearly, there's been clearly separation. I don't know if there necessarily is with that right now. We'd like there to be, at least, definitely two, if not five guys that we feel like have separated themselves and take control of that. They're showing all really good signs, but I think the name of the game for us, and what we talk to the players all the time about, is about consistency. And, being able to be in the gap that you're supposed to be consistently, being physical, striking your keys consistently, and then making plays when they're there. So, we still got some questions that we got to get answered there. But to be honest with you, by this point, we feel good about it, but we won't completely know until we get out there on the lines.
Mark Bobenrich, Time Morning Call.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Mark. How are you?
Good, thanks. The offensive line, did you settle on the question marks that you had going into the season, at least from the perspective of five starters, and then the depth behind them, at least, like a 2 deep, fully formed?
Yeah, I think right now we're very comfortable with the 6 guys that we have listed. Wright and Fries. That'll probably be a game day decision, but the reality of it is we feel like we can play and play well with either one of those guys. Neither one have completely separated themselves from the other. And a lot of times when that happens, you're concerned because you're not sure if you have one starter. I actually think we have 2. Obviously, both of them have started a bunch of games here, and we've been able to win bowl games and high-level Big Ten games with both of those guys playing. So feel good about those 6. And then I think we got a combination after that we feel good about. We feel good about Thorpe, we feel good about Simpson, we feel good about Miranda, we feel good about Des Holmes. But I don't know if it's necessarily purely a 2 deep. I think we still have some moving parts, based on some guys going down, just to ensure that we get the best 5 guys on the field from an experience standpoint.
Frank Bodani, York Daily Record.
Hi, James. How's it going for you?
Good, Frank. How are you?
Great, thank you. Your linebackers, the three of the young guys, Micah, Jesse, and Ellis. How much, how have they done? How much do you think they're going to be pushing for time the first couple of weeks? And just secondly, the loss of not having Manny in the linebacker room. Can you just speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, a couple things. I think at linebacker, I think you're going to see a lot of those guys. I think they're going to get a lot of reps. I don't think there's, again, a huge gap between our ones and our twos. So I think you're going to see maybe the twos get close, if not the same amount of reps as the ones at a lot of those positions. I think Cam Brown's probably a guy that's differentiated himself and separated himself a little bit from the pack. And then there's a gap between maybe his backups. I think Coe has done a really nice job, has played a lot of football for him, and I think Mike is making a strong push there. And then I think Jan between Ellis and Lucetta, I think there's going to be a strong push there, and you're going to see a lot of guys rotating and getting time. Once again, it's like a lot of things that that come out and become public. Number one, we love Manny. We want nothing but success for him and his future. And I think Manny has a very, very bright future. But for us, we've been kind of working with this anyway. Again, there's a lot of details of this matter that you guys are aware of, but it really hadn't changed a whole lot for us at this point in the season.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer.
Hi, Dave.
Hey Joe, how are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Good.
You mentioned at the start of training camp that you didn't want people, to think that the program had arrived after back-to-back 11-win seasons, that you still wanted to, work hard with a sense of urgency. Do you feel that the focus on the work ethic of your guys in practice and training camp, had that sense of urgency and desire to get better and focus that you want to see?
Yeah, I feel good about it. It's funny that I'm writing this note down because you just kind of made me think about something I want to cover with the team in the team meeting. But yeah, I've been very impressed. I think our culture is really strong right now. I think our chemistry is really strong. I think our leadership is different, in terms of we don't have a huge senior class and those types of things. But yeah, I like where we're at. I really do. And you see that in the weight room. You see that in the locker room. I know it probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but our locker room is as clean as it's ever been. And I think you guys know a few years ago we bought our leadership council and the coaches the book Legacy, which is one of my all-time favorite books. And in that book they talk about the leaders, sweeping the sheds, basically cleaning the locker room out, and that no role is too big or too small for anyone. That whether it's the head coach or the captain or whoever it is going to pick up something that's on the floor. And it probably sounds like a little thing to people that are watching this, but our locker room, our players' locker room is as clean as it's ever been. And I think that's a tremendous example of discipline. I think that's a tremendous example of leadership on our team. So I think we're in a good place. I know talking to the strength staff, they feel really good. They feel really good about where we are and how our guys are working. You talk to the training staff, you talk to the equipment staff, you talk to the academic staff, because you learn things by talking to all those groups. There's usually some places in a program where the guys go and fuss or moan and complain, and you learn a lot about that. You learn about what the guys are fussing and moaning and complaining about, but we don't have a whole lot of that right now in any of the areas. When you got 120 guys on your roster, there's usually some of that. So I think we're in a good place. I think guys are putting the team and the program first. They understand that they can still achieve all their individual goals, but typically those individual goals go to guys that are part of the best teams, the best organizations. And if they were interested in individual goals and objectives, then they could play tennis or swimming or golf, or they chose to play the greatest team sport there is. So I think our guys have really embraced that, and our leadership has been tremendous with those things.
Mike Gross, Lancaster Newspapers.
Hi, James, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. About your kickers, they're a bunch of young guys who have not had the opportunity to perform under the kind of pressure, kind of fishbowl, kind of crowds and everything that they're going to be, they're going to have to perform. And what have you done to kind of get them ready for that? And what about what have you seen in their sort of makeup and personality that makes you think they'll be able to deal with that?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say, this is the most competition we've had. And if you ask any of our players that, they'll tell you the same thing. It's the most competition we've had at the kicker position since we've been here. Not even close. You know, we really feel like that Pinniger, Hilling, Tobin, Cheka could all kick in a game for us, whether that was kickoff or field goal, and be able to do it at a fairly high level. So the competition in practice has been really good. So I think that helps. And then I think as coaches, we got to manage that. You know, we had a huge discussion this morning and then also a week ago about, when do you go for that field goal that's at the top of our field goal range, or when do we use one of the best punters that we have in America at pinning people deep, or when do you go for it on 4th and 6 down or less when you're in that plus territory, too long for a field goal, but maybe you're not gaining a whole lot by a punt and things like that. That's a huge discussion. And we do it as a staff because I want the offense and the defense and the special teams coaches and players to all be on the same page. So whatever our philosophy is, our offensive players can play with confidence, knowing that we're more likely going to go for it in these situations, and that the defense backs it. They want to see our offense be aggressive and go for a 4th down, and that if it doesn't work out, they're not hanging their head because they're bought into the philosophy as well, and that we manage early on those young kickers and put them in advantageous situations early in the season so that we can continue to build their confidence and they have a chance to go out and be successful. So you'll probably see us maybe punt or go for it on 4th down early in the season on some field goals that late in the season we're hoping to be able to go kick consistently.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune.
Hey Donnie, how are you?
Doing well. How the tight end competition shake down with John Holland and Danny Dalton, and with the two true freshman kids you have there? Where does tight end rank as a position? Whereas it's easier or harder to kind of contribute early on. Is picking up the physical aspect of that position usually the biggest challenge for those younger players?
Yeah, I think it's like the O-line. I think typically, those guys have a hard time playing young in their careers, kind of like how we saw Mike Gesicki go through growing pains early on and things like that. We're at a different point as a program now. I do think Freiermuth can factor in, partly because of how talented he is and how poised he's been through this process, but also that he's 258, if not 60 pounds. So I think that helps the physical aspect of the game. I think Holland and Dalton have had great camps. I think Bowers has shown flashes of being really special. So I would say our tight ends are a lot like our D tackles. I think we're talented at both those positions, but we still have a lot of question marks because we're just relying on so many guys that haven't played a whole lot of football for us at this point.
Corey Geiger, Altoona Mirror.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Corey. How are you?
Just two Altoona area guys. One, Kevin Gibbons. How much is his experience going to need to be counted on at the defensive tackle spot? What are some of the next steps he can take? And then two, I know Mike asked you about the kickers. Was there any one or two things specifically about Vlad Hilling that kept him in the competition for the field goal kicking job?
Well, first of all, I think Vlad Hilling may be one of the most popular players on our team. The perspective that he brings to our team, the attitude. I don't know if the guy's ever had a bad day in his life. He affects others around him, players and coaches as well. And he's got a really strong leg. He has got to get more refined on his process. He kind of is like a home run hitter. You know, he puts a big wad of bubble gum in his mouth and walks up to the plate and kind of taps the plate a few times and then just cranks away. And that's kind of how he is as a kicker. He's all heart, and he may have the strongest field goal leg we have, but his process needs to be a little bit more consistent so that his field goal percentage can go up a little bit. But we love him. I think Vlad's got a very, very bright future in our program, and we are so glad he's with us, and is still competing for us. And then Kevin Gibbons, is a grown man. He's really grown and evolved in so many different ways in our program. We've still got a ways to go. I think about when we were recruiting him, and he was I think a 6'1", 237 pound or 45 pound linebacker and running back. To see where he is now, and I'm proud of Kevin. He's still got growth to make in a lot of different areas, but he is headed in the right direction, and I'm really proud of him. So I think he's going to have a significant year for us.
We'll open up to questions here in the room. Raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you.
Hey, James. I know the new redshirt rule has changed some things for you, but I'm curious if there are any freshmen at this point that you know for sure are going to see action in more than 4 games that kind of already have that green light, so to speak.
Yeah, I probably should have brought that with me so I don't miss anybody, and maybe you can help me with this as well, Chris. But Fryermuth has a green light. Slade has a green light at this point. Lucetta has a green light. Parsons has a green light. And then obviously Pinniger has a green light. So I think that's everybody. That's truly a green light, I think, at this point. How many did I name?
5.
Yeah, I'm probably short 2 because I think the number's 7, but that's the number I know right now. I'll have Chris be able to reach out to you guys and let you know exactly what that list is, so you know. But offhand, there's the ones I can remember. I just don't want to. A couple that I'm unsure of, I don't want to say it, and then they're hearing it for the first time at the press conference.
James, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. You mentioned in your opening statement on both sides of the ball for Appalachian State, you mentioned speed. How much can speed be kind of a level of the playing field or be in the equation when you have a team that may not have all those other things like size and strength?
Yeah, I think it's probably the main factor. I think that's why you look at their program and how successful they've been, because that's been their focus. You look at these types of games every single year. Usually the skill players, the back 7 on defense and the perimeter players on offense, and then we have the big skill obviously as well. I don't want Coach Linebacker to get mad at me, but the perimeter skill players usually match up very well. In these types of games, it's usually up front where it's different. But yeah, I think you can get away with an undersized player as long as he's quickness and plays to his strength and plays on edges and not down the middle of people and things like that. I think you guys have heard me talk about before with our offensive line and our defensive line. Most college lines have a hard time blocking movement. So if you're going to be undersized, obviously you're not going to go right down the middle of people. You're going to slant, you're going to angle, you're going to twist, you're going to pressure and spike. Those different types of things to play to your strengths and give your team an advantage. But I watched the Georgia game from last year. It was 0-0 until the very end of the first quarter. They played really good on defense early in the game, and then I think Georgia scored right at the end of the first quarter. You know, like I told you, they took Tennessee to double overtime. Wake Forest had to block a field goal with 5 seconds to go in the game. So this team is going to come into this stadium expecting to win. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think they've earned that right. I really do. You know, I think Mike had asked me earlier about, you know, do we show them the Michigan game and our players, that type of stuff? No, you know, because I would hope that our process of making sure that our players and everybody associated with our program know that the most important game on our schedule is this game, and we'll approach it and prepare as if it's the Super Bowl. Our mentality is that takes care of that rather than showing them the Michigan game. Do we talk about it? Yeah, we talk about it, but we're not going to harp on it because I want our guys ultimately, whether we're playing App State or anybody else, I ultimately want our focus to be on us. Penn State, we have to have an awareness of the teams we're playing and what they do scheme-wise. We have to have an awareness, there's no doubt about that. We have to have an awareness so we can anticipate and sometimes predict what they're going to do so we can play fast. But ultimately, it comes down to us.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
What's maybe impressed or surprised you most about Micah Parsons, both the player and the person, from January and kind of the winding recruitment until now?
Yeah, I think probably not a whole lot because as you guys know, we had been recruiting Micah and his family and his high school for a long time, both high schools. So I think we had a pretty good idea of what we were getting, and you know, sometimes they get here and you know, you weren't right, you know, you were off. You know, kid may be better and sometimes needs more development, those types of things. But I think we had a pretty good idea of what we were getting with Micah, you know, and have been impressed. You know, we always obviously had very high beliefs in Micah as a football player, as an athlete. We also had very high standards and expectations of who Micah could be in the classroom and in the community as well. But again, what I think happens a lot of times is people forget, not just Micah, this entire class, they're 18 years old. You know, so you know, some of them are very mature. Some of them are very immature. Some of them are silly. Some of them have put a major emphasis on academics early in their career because that's the family they've come from. Some of them have a wake-up call and understand how important their education is after they get here and show up for a little bit of time. And that's all of our players. There's a journey. I'd like for you guys to all think back to when you were 17 or 18 years old, how you thought, how you acted. And that's kind of our entire freshman class. You know, what's nice is I think they all complement each other very well. I think there's tremendous leadership in that group. And I think Micah is a great example of you know, the entire class. There's times that he's really, really mature. There's times where he's immature. There's times where he's done really well academically. There's times where he's missed a class when he shouldn't have been. But I think Micah is one of the guys, you know, we put out a graphic the other day. Micah is one of the guys on that graph, you know, that has done extremely well academically in his combination of both the spring and the summer. So I think Micah's very similar to what we thought, and very similar to the rest of the class. You're dealing with 18-year-old males, but I think we've done a really good job with our player development program of making sure that these guys understand the expectation and the standards and the opportunity that they have and how blessed that they should feel, and make sure that they leave Penn State as educated men and prepared for life. So I think, you asked me specifically about Micah, but really my answer is about the whole freshman class. Guys, they're all over the map. From Monday to Friday, it's going to be different. But they're maturing and growing up every single day, and I'm really proud of them.
Dave?
James, you mentioned Jalen Moore earlier. What qualities does he have that particularly impress you, and what challenges will he present for your defense?
I think he's a home run hitter. You know, he's a home run hitter. There's games where he has been highly productive. There's games where he hasn't been. But what you're dealing with him is if there's a hole, he has the ability to take it the distance. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with coaches at the high school level, at college level, and the NFL. There's some really productive backs that aren't really fast and are going to be able to grind out and rush for over 100 yards and get you 5 or 6 yards of carry. And then there's some guys like him that can really skew the numbers because they may average 4 yards a rush, but then they're going to have 2 runs a game that are over 80 yards and spike their numbers and all those types of things. And he's that type of guy. If you're not sound, if you're not in your gap, if you're not gap responsible, things like that, or if you over pursue or things like that, he's a guy that can stick his foot in the ground and go 80 at any point. And he's the rare combination. He's not a little guy. He's 5'11", he's 207 pounds, he runs 4.37. His broad jump we talked about, his squat, so he's not like one of these undersized guys that can't run for power when he needs to or can't break a tackle and those types of things. So I think he's had something, I don't have it written down here, but I remember at some point either watching a tape or reading the stats, he's had 2 or 3 games where he's rushed for over like 230 yards, I think. 4 of them? Thank you, 4 of them. And I think he's the only guy in the country that has done that. So we got to make sure that knowing that they're a run-first based offense, that we need to be prepared for those types of things. I also know playing this type of opponent and the speed that we know that they have at wide out as well. We spent a lot of time talking about, if I'm them with the speed that they have at wide out as well, and some of the changes that they've had on the offensive line, do they max protect and take 10 shots? Say we're going to take 10 shots down the field, and if we complete 4 of them, we're in a really good position. And they may do that. They may run the ball, max protect, take shots to their guys that they feel like they can really run to swing momentum and try to silence the crowd.
Hey James, how you doing?
Good, Mark.
Great. Would PJ be one of those guys, Mustipher, who's
Yeah.
green or close to green?
Yeah, he's like Hunter green.
Okay. And I just wanted to, what are the challenges for a true freshman to contribute at that position? Obviously, he has the physical tools, but you don't often see a lot of true freshmen come in and play a D-tackle.
Yeah, he's unusual. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think he's unusual. He's a high energy, high motor guy, which usually doesn't happen with guys that are 6'4", 305 pounds. I think that helps him. I think if you have a motor on the defensive line, that can solve a lot of issues for you, and he goes hard. You talk to the players during summer workouts, conditioning tests, he's crushing it. So he came in with that. I think it helps him that his dad played college football. I think it helps him that his brother is the captain of Notre Dame's football. So he's been around football his whole life. His dad, played a big role in training him, not only in the weight room, but also out on the field. So he came in pretty far along and came in with a really good mentality as well. Played a great high school program. I think that plays a factor into it. So I think it's all those things. I think he came in physically, ready to play from a size and from a strength and from a movement standpoint. And then also just him being around football as much as he's been, he's learned stuff. It's like hiring a coach's kid to coach for you. It's like recruiting a player who's grown up in a football family, parents were coaches or whatever it may be. They're learning football. They don't even know they're learning football. They've just been around it their whole life. So he's one of those guys. So yeah, he's definitely one of those guys.
Peter?
Hey, Coach.
So that's 6. We're up to 6, right? So we got one more to get for you.
Think back to your days as a player, even first game of the season after all the built up. What are the emotions going into the stadium, maybe on game day?
Yeah, I think obviously there's excitement. I was getting a bunch of texts on Saturday night from guys. Antonio Shelton was blowing me up about how excited he is, and we got to balance that. We had a discussion in a staff meeting last week, and a discussion with our team as well, a team meeting about making sure that our players understand that those feelings are natural, because those feelings really are there to help you. Those feelings, those butterfly feelings in your stomach, that nervous energy, that increased heart rate, that sweating, that's your body telling you that you are ready. And we talked about that a lot as a staff, and we talked about that a lot with the players. And it's funny, just based on how you perceive that. If you're a player or just a person in general, and you perceive that as, I am ready, my body is reacting like this because this is something that is important to me, and this energy that I'm getting from my heart rate and from these things is actually going to go to allowing me to be the best football player I possibly can be, or an exam or whatever it may be. That's a positive. There's other people that can interpret that energy as a negative. I'm stressed, I'm not prepared, I have anxiety. It's really the same exact feeling. It's all based on how you interpret that feeling and that energy. So talking to our players and our coaches about embracing that, embracing that and using that. So, I think we're in a good place, but I think there'll be some of that, and there should be. I'll be nervous. I get butterflies every time I walk into that stadium. I've been in there probably 100 times now. You should feel that way, because that's your body telling you that you care, and that's your mind and your heart letting you know that you're invested.
We have time for two more, Neil.
Hey James, are you still trying to get Tommy Stevens the ball in multiple roles?
Yeah, be similar to what you've seen in the past. Again, as you guys know, I don't really like to get into schemes a whole lot, because I don't really necessarily want to tell App State, our opponents, what we're doing. I know you got to ask, but I try to avoid scheme answers and scheme questions.
Hey Coach, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, how much more value is there for you in a game like this against an opponent that has their reputation, that's not scared to come in here, that can hit back, as opposed to, there are teams in Division I that you play and you're going to win by 50 and the starters are out by halftime. How much more value is there for a opponent that can, they're challenged?
Yeah, I think, again, I'll never approach it or say what you just said, because I think we have all learned that on any given Sunday or any given Saturday or any given Friday night, if you don't have your mind right and you haven't prepared the right way and you haven't approached it the right way, you're going to be in for a long day. So, yeah, I do think, being very strategic about what we do non-conference is critical. It is critical to our season, is critical to getting our guys ready and prepared for what the season may bring. It's critical to put us in the best position to be part of Big Ten championship conversations. Is critical and strategic to give us the best chance to go further than that. So yeah, I think it's very, very important from a scheduling perspective. But the hard part is, how do you predict that when typically you're scheduling 5, 6, 7, 8 years out? A team that you scheduled 6 or 8 years ago was really strong, and then by the time they get on your schedule, they're not, or vice versa. So that's the challenging part of it, and that's where I think that the best way to handle that is looking at historical data. Where has this program been over the last 50 years? There's a good chance that they're going to be in that category. There's times where there's spikes, and there's times where there's dips, but looking at that historical data and evidence, I think, is important. And then also, how does that factor in with your conference, your side of the conference, and also who's rotating in from the other side of your conference that year? All of those things are going to factor into that.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be joined momentarily by Amani Oruwarian.
Yeah, sure.